Okay, now here's a video that I wanted to put out for a couple people that have asked about my drill press table and fence specifically. This table I built a long time ago, and it's just very simple. There's nothing crazy about it. It's 1 inch thick. No, I'm sorry, 1 1/4 inch thick, and it's actually plywood, laminated together. It's got a solid cherry edging on it, and then an actual Formica top. That Formica top is actually part of this whole process of beveling this front edge. So it's put on after the edging and then beveled with it. So it's pretty neat the way that it's done. And this couldn't be simpler as far as a tip or fence design and drill press design for the table. Couldn't be simpler. I've got 2 T-bolts that attach to these tracks. Now I'm going to go ahead, and since I don't have a job right now that's got the doors, so I'm going to go ahead and take this apart so I can show you the dust collection. Now this dust collection is kind of tight, and to accommodate this particular dust hose, I have some duct tape on this pipe, or this outlet port on the fence here. Now these knobs, normally I don't take them all the way off. However, because this guy here, I don't think I could get this off with the dust collection shroud on it, but let me try. Maybe if I pivot it. Yeah, it's just one of those things. It probably would work, but it's just a little simpler probably to take off the knobs. As long as you keep them from flying all around. Okay. Now I can lift this right up, and you'll see the. Also, this could come forward, and I could release it up here, but because this is already set with the bit in there, I guess it's just easier to lift it up. So lift it straight up. All right, so now you can see the parts of this guy here. Okay, so in fact, you know what? Let me just take this off. That's just going to get in the way. Okay, so now you can see nothing crazy here. This is really straightforward. So these are 3 inch regular standard issue bolts that you can find at Home Depot. So you can see right there, they're 3 inch. And the threading on them though, because it's not threaded all the way up, it makes it a little easier to get it into the hole, the shank. It's only got a 1 inch tall threaded part. So these are the perfect size for this particular size fence. Now, this is the part that is really simple. It's literally, this guy here is routed in, and it stops here. Nothing crazy there. The depth of this whole thing is 20. If I take the actual front part too, it's 20 3/8. So from edging to edging, 20 3/8. The top white part surface, that's 19 5/8. And the top is 27.5 plus the edging, 28.5 or whatever. But yeah, 27.5, the actual surface that I can rest stuff on. Got 4 bolts going down with nuts on top locked down. So those guys right there secure to the table below, and they're countersunk down in here. This guy is removable, but I don't remove it very often. In fact, I never do. And you could probably go up from below if you needed to push this thing out. But let me show you what it is. So when I made this to be reversible. In other words, I could take it. That's where I have my hole there. But if I wanted a fresh hole, all I have to do is spin it. And now I've got a fresh area that doesn't, you know, if you're thinking about tear out or whatever, you can do that all day long and switch this out. This is an absolutely amazingly simple thing. It's just 1/4 inch cherry, of course, to match the cherry, everything else. But it could be anything, MDF, but it is MDF core. It's not plywood core. So it's a MDF core, 1/4 inch, and it fits in there really nicely. This particular recess is great because it's just rabbited, and basically it's just a depth of this plus a little extra. What I did was I put a little, made it a little extra because you never know. Sometimes you get wood or material that's a little thicker or a little thinner, but I have pieces of tape in here to literally just raise up this, and you could theoretically do the same thing as just put the tape on here as well if you wanted to do that. But when you put it on there, it fits in there just like a glove. And this is rounded over to make it easier to get, you know, a router bit to create this. You don't have to worry about squaring it up. So I actually rounded everything over, and it fits like a glove in here. But and again, I don't really ever take this thing out. So let me show you up close. Okay, so now you can see what it is like here. Now, it's absolutely essential that this piece be, in my mind, reversible, right? So don't do square, because if you do square, you're not gonna be able to spin it around, right? Doing it at a rectangular shape, I can spin it and get a fresh area to drill into. So I think if you're going to utilize this type of insert, I would go rectangular. And it also depends on where you position it on your table. Because if you put it too far back or if you put it too far forward, if you put it too far forward, you're not going to be able to reverse it because you're going to be more in the center as you drive it down. So figure out where your actual chuck is and where the bits are going to come, and do it like that. So basically it's set back to give you that natural ability to spin it. But that's pretty much it for that. But let me just take a measurement of this insert. I'll take a couple measurements. One is from the back of the table. That's 2 3/8 inches to that part. That's 6 1/4 inches for the entire length, 6 1/4. And the width, 4 5/8. 4 5/8. And now from the back to the front is 8 5/8. And of course it's centered on the whole thing. Now, also bear in mind that if you're going to be doing through holes, there's going to be dust that potentially could drop down here. So if you don't have dust collection on your fence, the dust is going to come on the top. And then of course, if you're doing through holes, it's going to go down below. So think about that as well, because you'll lose a lot of your dust collection ability with the hole there if you've got, you know, if you're doing through holes. But if you just put a little bucket down underneath there, it'll capture that dust. Okay, so that's pretty much it for that. You can see how it's rounded over just simply. But when I put this in here, it is, I mean, it fits perfectly in there. Look how nice that is. I mean, and again, this was done, you know, 15 years ago, I think. Not maybe 18 years, 20 years. But it's definitely something that has stood the test of time. Originally, I had these tracks on the sides. You can see right there how I mounted it, but I decided that wasn't going to be the way I wanted to do it. So I wanted to have the connection at the top. It's much simpler of a design and it's way better to do it that way. Now, let's look at the, actually, let me show you, I can show you. So you can see these T-tracks here. I mean, the T-slots. This Powermatic has these T-slots. That's what I connect my fence or my table to. I actually put, there's like a, basically a slotted fixture in there, and I connect that with the nut at the top, and I crank it down so it tightens up right there. So that's where it goes through. It doesn't, you know, there's nothing else there. Also though, I have a couple of screws. These are just going right through the cast iron. So I have those as well. There's 2 of those, or maybe there's 4 actually. Can't really see, there's a couple other ones, but yeah. And this thing is obviously in there. I mean, it doesn't move at all. It's very stable, but it's awesome. Now, as far as the fence goes, this is definitely a cool addition. Let me see if I can show you. So this is just a scrap piece of cherry that I had left over here. I utilized this leftover block for the bits. So it works perfectly. And it's just glued right to the fence. Couldn't be simpler. A couple holes on the side for various things, whatever you want. Now, this piece here, and again, this was all left over. You can see originally I had the bit storage on this side, but I decided to put it on this side. So one nice thing about 2P10 glue is that you can take it apart when you want to. Just smack it with a hammer and it'll just break the joint. But you can see all that 2P10 leftover glue. That stuff's amazing, by the way. I love that stuff. Okay. This guy here, there's not too much to it. This port is the Powermatic port that came with the drill press. And it definitely is a nice feature. I know you can get these from Powermatic, I believe. You can still get this if you're looking for that. Or you can find, I think there's probably a provider out there for an offset drill press table vacuum port. I'm not sure if there is. This one's phenomenal. I mean, it is great. There's nothing else you could do with this to make it better. The post is right here, right, for the drill press, and it's got a bypass, so it goes to the side. You cannot have this any simpler. I suppose if you wanted to make this, you probably could make this with a 3D printer, but I don't know. This is actually, I thought this was aluminum, but it may not be. It might be plastic. I can't tell. I think it's aluminum. And it's just great. Now, I don't have this thing. It's not like screwed in a sense. It is connected via screws, but it's not like screwed in, just the way that this mounts. Let me show you if I can, let me see if I can take this off and I'll show you how it's mounted. I'll show you inside there so maybe you can see the, that screw right there. Inside. That one is a slotted screw. So I can go up and down. So you can see that. It's essentially on there via friction, just like a surge protector strip where you put the screw in, you know, from behind and you kind of slot it down. Well, that's what it's like. The only problem is I have this piece on the I have this on in order to seal the bottom so that when I go off the table of the fence in the back, you know, the drill press table, if I push the fence back off of here, if I don't have that piece on here, if I don't have that, it's just like an open area. So this needs to be on something that is gonna extend with it. That's why I have this piece cut out just to make it like that. So it's basically trapped on here. So what I could have done possibly is, oh, look at that piece is just, I smacked it enough to where it came loose. I'm taking one for the team here. I'll have to re-glue this on here. You know what? That might work out good, because what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna put a bevel on that and just make that piece. It's like the miter saw table, so I'm actually gonna take that and bevel it. So at the front, it'll be nice and sharp. Okay, so it all works out. All right, now let's take a look at this guy. So you can see it works great. This guy right here just slots down and it connects. So yeah, this is definitely aluminum. That's not plastic. It kind of sounds like plastic. And so these screws just tension up and then you drop it down. That's the way I designed it. It works out great. So put enough tension on there. Now, what I'm gonna do though, since this guy right here, since I like to have this sealed up for that bottom. So if I don't have this, just so you know, if I don't have it like that, let me show you what happens. All right, so this part right here, it goes off the table and there's a void here. So as you use it, although I mostly use it up here, it's not an issue. But as soon as you come off that back of the table, that part there is now hanging off, and you can see my finger coming up that bottom area. That's because there's nothing at the bottom. So that's why I have that piece of, this guy here, this piece of hardboard. And it works perfectly, it seals it up. However, and then I'm gonna go ahead and bevel this. I'm just going to use the, I mean, how many different ways can you bevel something? You can sand it, you can route it. It's probably the easiest just to throw a chamfering bit in the router table and just chamfer that guy right off. Take a nice sharp 45 degree on that. And also what I'm gonna do is, where this comes together like that, so this piece here is like that. What I'm gonna do so I can take this off in the future if I want to, is I'm actually gonna put a slot right here where the slots are. I'm just gonna add a slot to the wood, just so I can get the piece to slide up and down rather than trapping it on there, because that's what I did originally. It just was trapped, but now I'm gonna change it. So nice little modifications, a couple little mods, cool. Yeah. What else? Okay, so as far as the fence goes, you can see right here, it's a big block of cherry with a rabbit in the front. As you can see, nothing crazy there. Pretty straightforward. Let me just show you how long this guy is. So this is 31 inches long and 2 inches deep, 2.5 inches tall. Now this guy here, these drops, these stops here, these need to be, potentially, they make longer ones, I think, or these are the longer ones, I can't recall. They make a one for a drill press, and they make one for the table saw. So whatever your height of your fence is, that's kind of what you want to do. You want to just have it be the same, drop. The way that this is designed, it worked really well. As you can see, literally goes right down to the surface there. So 2.5 inch drop. What does that make these? I don't know how they measure them, but either way, if you're using it on the T-track right flush at the top and it drops down 2.5 inch tall, this works perfectly. So if this was considered a 2.5 inch, that's, you know, there you go. So it doesn't go below, it doesn't go above. It's right perfectly in line with the, look at that, how cool that is. And this is just screwed, nothing crazy. Again, a little bit bigger hole than you need to get these bolts through. Doesn't have to be crazy, but just barely bigger. That's all you want. And these are 1/4 inch. Yeah. 1/4 inch. By 3. And they fit perfectly in there. So if that's a 1/4 inch hole, it would be a little tight, but maybe it's like, let's see here. It might be a 1/4 inch hole. I would do a test cut and just test hole and just see what you like. Because you want it to be tight, but you don't want it to be too tight that you can't get it in. You want it to be able to, you know, move it if you need to. Okay. What else can I say? So you can see the holes there. And this table, by the way, I have secured to the wall with these big giant monsters because just in case we have an earthquake, it just keeps it from, but it is on a mobile base. And the great thing about the dust collection is that it goes right to the dust deputy that I have down in there. And you saw the videos on that, or if you didn't, check it out. And because I had to modify some stuff to get that dust deputy to work, but it works really well, and it's going to save me from having to buy bags for these guys. And you know, the bags are so expensive, and it's just better to have that dust deputy there. You don't have to worry about any kind of filters and all that stuff. So even with bags, it's not an issue. But I think that most people wanted to know about this. Now, I don't have a video on building this because it's something I did so long ago. And there's really no reason to change the design of this. However, you know, it is something that I would definitely do if somebody wanted to see how I did it. I'm just kind of hoping by showing people exactly what I've got, I'm sure there's going to be people out there that are going to say, oh man, you know, this is awesome. That split in the fence, that might be one of those things that's kind of difficult for people to understand how it's done. But essentially you're just creating a channel in there, and then you just rotate the wood. So you create a channel, you know, almost like a half lap type of a joint, right? And then you just raise your blade up and you just clean it out. So you create that channel, and then you rotate this fence to clean out this other side. So that part right there gets cleaned out. So from the shoulder to this part, because you obviously need to keep some of this in there for strength. If you remove all that wood, you're not going to be able to, you know, the fence isn't going to be strong. But you see all that wood that's remaining? So this is the critical part, because this is why I have such good dust collection at my fence here. So that's 1.5 inches tall. And let's just see the width of this. A little over 3.5 inches wide. So what's remaining is just about 1 inch of material there, a little less. About 1 inch, and then this part here, 1.25 inches remaining. So that's really cool. And like I said, when this thing's on, you see in my videos where I'm drilling holes for hinges. I mean, it just picks up everything. So it's great. But I'm going to make this little modification, and I'll show you that. Now to chamfer this, I have a 45-degree chamfering bit in there, and I've got my fence pulled in tight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plunge in, and I'm going to chamfer right in here, and then I'm going to remove this material. I'm not going to chamfer out to the outsides, just that inside part. So because this is a big bit, it's going to come around further than where I want to actually chamfer. So I'm going to stop on this fence. It's kind of aligned with the cutting edge, just barely. And then this one here on the this part here, the fence opening is lined with the cutting edge. So I'm gonna line this up with my mark right there, and that's gonna be my plunge. And then I'm gonna come down and I'm gonna stop it at that first line where it hits that opening. And then I'm gonna remove it. That's gonna go ahead and give me that chamfer right in the middle. And then I'm gonna notch this just with the bandsaw, just clear that up. All right, let me go ahead and knock this out. And I'm just going to go ahead and use my old Delta 14-inch and just notch these to fit around those screws that hold it on. All right, that could be simpler. Now to glue this guy back on, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave everything attached, like all this stuff that came off with it as I took it off. And I'm gonna leave it all attached there, because what that's gonna do is it's gonna actually get me to be exactly in the right position. So as you see here, if I slide this over, it's gonna like drop into that position. See that? So now I've got it like registered, and I don't have to worry about getting it perfectly lined up again, because it's already lined up. And it will provide me with a airtight seal again, because it's literally going in to exactly where it went before. So very cool. Just a little something to think about when you take stuff off that's been glued. If you take it off and leave the fragments left on it, sometimes it works to your benefit and sometimes it doesn't. So if it was a problem, I would just scrape this off, but it's actually helping me. But I need it to be flush with the fence. So this needs to be dead flush. So I'm gonna put it down, face down, and register it. So widthwise, get that nice and tight, and then I'll secure it. Of course, I'm gonna use that same glue again. Now you can see also the chamfer is going to be aligned right in that middle area, so that where the chips come in, it's going to like be a ramp. Now, when you use this glue, it's really important that you don't hit your hands, because it will glue your hands together. And they make some debonder stuff. It's basically like if you have a problem and you get your fingers stuck together, just use that debonder and it'll release it. So it's pretty cool stuff. All right, now that I've got it aligned, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to hit it with my accelerator. Just separate it just a little bit, and now I can reattach with pressure. Not much pressure, just a little bit. And let that set up for just a second. And if there's any areas that you feel like need to get sprayed again, just to secure this or dry it. Sometimes you get a little bit areas that are a little bit wet still, but it's pretty unlikely. But definitely hit the any kind of areas that are wet. That looks really good. Now I can take this and put it back on my fence. And this is the beauty of having this slot here. So now I can take this slot and I can drop it down different than I did before. So I don't have to take that bottom part off every time I want to remove this guy. And so now, however tight I do those screws is going to determine how tight this is. Let's go ahead. Push this down. And it just seats itself right down on the bottom, and I don't have to touch this thing. It's nice and tight. All right, we can put this guy back on. Let's check out that modification. So that modification is that ramp right there. So you can see why I didn't go all the way down. I didn't want to have a chamfer under there. I just wanted to have it right there. That's cool. That's really that's gonna improve what is already a phenomenal setup. Okay. Now, let's see here. We can put it through like this. Since we don't have a drill bit there, we can drop it down right there, and it will go just like that. So that's why it's nice to have these entrance and exit holes rather than just going all the way to the back. It's nice to be able to do that. Okay, and I have a bunch of marks on my fence, you know, for various cuts. So it's just a matter of getting it in the right position, and that's where jigs come in. So this setup jig is great for doors, so I know where to put my actual drill bit. I literally can put it right into the chuck and position everything perfectly and then tighten it down. So I don't have to worry about the alignment. So it's nice to have those jigs. All right, so it's like that. You put it down, and wherever that hole is positioned and it can go down, I know that's the right spot. So now what I can do is loosen up my stops and the fence and all that stuff. Okay, so I'm good to go. All I have to do is tighten down the fence with my star knobs. I have lots of different knobs for mounting this guy. It really depends on your setup, because what's going to happen is potentially you are going to hit the knob with the handle of the drill press. So if you are, if everything is, you know, if you use all three, I actually take this guy off in some cases, because just to avoid the this part here. So you can see it goes right down, and if that's set there, it's going to hit it. But because of it not needing to be set there all the time, or pretty much ever, so now that's perfect right there. I know those stops are in the right spot, and if they're not, I can just shift them, but it's good. As you can see, this passes through, but if I were to move this over, it's going to be in the way of the handle. So a lot of times I'll remove this guy because I don't need this one. I have, the leverage comes from this one. So it's, again, it's all going to be dependent on your situation. If I were to let the drill press go up higher, it could be a problem because I could be hitting that, but I don't want it to be that high normally, so it works great. These holes are positioned just perfectly so that it's not interfering with the handle, so those aren't a problem ever. It's just potentially the stop is an issue. So again, very rarely a problem. If it is, I figure out a solution. Usually it's just to take off one of these handles because I don't need to have all of them on. Most of the time I just want my chuck to stop about right there. And then I just take this one handle and I can bring it down and bring the chuck down. So it's not an issue at all. So you can totally get rid of this guy. That's not necessary, you know. So a lot of times I will, but yeah. So I have it like that. But that's pretty much it. Very nice setup. So if you have any other questions, or if you would like to see me do a video on the construction and actually do some of the construction and almost, you know, basically remake this thing. If I get enough people that want to see that, I will do it. But you know, I'm gonna have to see that there's gonna be a lot of people that want to see that. All right. Thanks again. Hope you enjoyed the video.